Hello, my name is Salman Hamid, and I'm Assistant Professor of Integrated Science and Humanities at Hampshire College.
I'm Kevin Anderson. I teach courses in film and anthropology at the University of Massachusetts, and this is Film Autopsy. Hello, and welcome to a film autopsy of 5 of the best films about the end of the world, and several you should definitely avoid. I mean, if it's going to be your last night on Earth, you definitely want to avoid some of these. But the thing is, we're talking about films that are about the world ending, not just catastrophe films like The Day After and or The Road even. This is like, no, lights out, baby. End of the world. Okay, so we're going to start with Nick and Nora. No, it's directed by Lorene Scafaria, who had previously done Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist. Obviously not that infinite, because the world ends in her next film, Seeking a Friend at the End of the World, with Keira Knightley and Steve Carell.
The final mission to save mankind has failed. The 70-mile-wide asteroid known as Matilda is set to collide with Earth in exactly 3 weeks' time, and we'll be bringing you our countdown to the end of days, along with all your classic rock favorites.
What are you doing with the rest of your life?
Catching up on some me time, find God, maybe move around some chairs.
Maybe I'll run into you on orgy or something.
Well, that sounds nice.
The way in which the film was promoted makes it seem a bit more slapstick and funny. I mean, there's definitely funny moments because you've got Steve Carell, but I like the chemistry between Keira Knightley and Steve Carell's character, and there's certainly a generational gap there, and that's something interesting in the film, that over time, she's a bit more, blasé about the world ending, and this is one of those films where people know the world's going to end, and he's like, I mean, he's kind of depressed about. He's more depressed about his wife leaving him. And then near the end of the film, he's much more resolved about things ending, and she has become much more realistic about, oh, life's going to be over. And of course, her being much younger, she's a bit more anxiety-ridden about that. But I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was. I think it's, for your last night on Earth, it would be a good one to watch.
If you like syrupy films, yes. I mean, I actually didn't like this film, and I thought it was too predictable, too sort of like, Did
you think they'd have sex? I did not think they would have a sex scene. And so that surprised me.
Well, okay. So if that's the only thing that surprised, perhaps that's the only thing that's surprising in that film. But yeah, no. I actually really wanted the world to end a little bit sooner in that film, so that the movie would end.
Okay.
But no, I didn't like this. But here is another film that you can try out, which was also, like, universally, pretty much with very few exceptions, panned by the critics. Yeah. But actually it was interesting. It was called Knowing, and it was directed by Alex Proyas, who also did another interesting film, Dark City. And in Knowing, it stars Nicolas Cage, and of course with Nicolas Cage, you never know. Are you going to get good Nicolas Cage, or are you going to get bad Nicolas Cage? Yeah. And so this has all the hallmarks of bad Nicolas Cage.
Oh, the trailer makes you think, I am going to avoid that film, and you had to almost drag me into
Exactly. But the movie is actually interesting.
List of dates. Every major global disaster for the last 50 years in perfect sequence. The next number on the chain predicts that tomorrow, 81 people are going to die in some kind of tragedy.
In the film, you have a huge solar flare that is going to destroy the Earth. And forget about science in it, because no, science is awful. But the overall, there is this fantastic element of discussion you can have on the issue of free will and predestination, whether you can change events, or anybody can change events, or events happen because they have been predetermined, either by law or by something else. Phenomenal, fantastically interesting film if you think from that perspective.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And it does maintain this kind of science-religion conversation. Nicolas Cage is a scientist in the film. His father is a minister. They've had a bit of a falling out, but as the inevitable ending of the world is coming, they are able to not see eye to eye, but to kind of tolerate each other's different perspectives. And the film also has a bit to do with Nicolas Cage's son, who somehow has this ability, I don't even know how to describe it, like he writes down all these different numbers that represent different dates when different catastrophes have occurred.
Disasters that happen, like, and then they keep on going up and up.
Yeah, up in scale, and the one that's coming is the ultimate one. And I thought the ending of the film is like, beautiful. Are they angels? Are they aliens? What's going on?
And those characters are actually very creepy,
fantastic,
and done beautifully. So yes, see that.
And the special effects are not over the top by any means. Another really good film, Last Night, directed by Don McKellar, and I just see it as the quintessentially Canadian version of, it came out in 1998, right around the Y2K scare, and the film opens up with Sandra Oh in a grocery store that's kind of been pilfered. And similar to these other films, everybody knows the world is going to end. So what are you going to do? And this is the last night. So she's going to be preparing this dinner with her family. And she's walking through the store where everything's been already pretty much taken off the shelves. And she goes to the wine section, holds up 2 bottles of wine. And she like takes the time to read both the labels and then decides on one and puts the other one back. It's like she doesn't want to take too much, in case somebody else comes along, even though it's the last night on Earth. I thought it was a great opening. In that film, there's a great vignette with, it follows various different people. Some of their storylines cross, others are almost more like, works like vignettes. And Callum Keith Rennie, who's fantastic, was on Battlestar Galactica, also on Californication. In this film, he's spending his last night fulfilling his love interests. And these various women come over, like the first one to come over is like his first grade teacher that he had a crush on. And so she's much older than him. And then like his dental assistant, and then just, and it's not just about like, the male satisfaction, because like the women are also see this as unfulfilled desire as well. But I thought it was an interesting vignette within the film. I really liked Last Night.
I think it's one of the best, I would say the best end of the world films, because it really addresses this question. Okay, so, and he goes to his family, and there's a family dinner and all of that stuff. And it really puts us like, okay, so if you really have to face this question, it actually meditates on that in an intelligent way.
You have only this much more time left. What are you going to do?
And you had about, in that film, the premise is that you had about a year to think about this last night. And so that it's not like suddenly people are figuring this out. No, you had a year. It's not like American films. It's not like chaos and
I don't think there's any special effects in the film.
Violence happening, or
I think some angry, there was a Torontoans turn over a car.
Right, exactly.
It's like
and so this movie really, if you are interested in an intellectual thinking about what will you do if you really knew about the end of the world, like the next day, and I think
it's not super heady either.
It's really wonderful. So that is perhaps the best movie for the end of the world. But the next movie, Melancholia, which came out,
which we've already done an autopsy for, but we're including it in this.
Directed by Lars von Trier, and Kristen Dunst is in it with a wonderful performance in it, and that deals with this connection between depression and end of the world, and so Melancholia is a planet in some sense. So both metaphor and
it's on a
real
collision
planet.
course with Earth.
It's coming and coming, and the first half of the film is all about a wedding celebration that has gone seriously bad, and as seriously bad as it can get. But the second half of the film is about the fact that people know that a planet which people saw just as a tiny bit in the wedding scene, and this is a little bit later when people know that the planet is going to hit the Earth. And Kristen Dunst's character, who is usually very depressed, she's the one who accepts the reality.
She's able to come to terms with this.
Of course, everything is going to go.
And Charlotte Gainsborough, who plays her sister,
wonderful acting.
Who I mean, they're almost polar opposites in this film, and as they kind of, as the end comes nearer, they're going in kind of even
opposite
more
directions.
Opposite directions.
And the ending of the film, one of the phenomenally
really
beautiful endings, where the Kristen Dunst and her sister's son, they both sit together. They both have come to grips with the fact, the world is going to end. That's what it is. And they build up this tiny little celebratory shelter, which of course you cannot tell. You have a tiny shelter out of sticks, and you see Melancholia, the planet, come in and crash with the Earth.
It's so beautiful. To think of like Lars von Trier doing a disaster film, but it
is a very Lars von Trier disaster film.
It's very operatic. It's a downer. It's heavy, and it's absolutely beautiful. The last film I want to talk about is A Quiet Earth from I believe 1986, a New Zealand film. And in that one, there's some kind of nuclear snafu. The world ends, everybody dies, except the people who were at their exact moment of death when the world was ending. They are the only ones who survive. So at first you think it's just this one guy, it's kind of a white New Zealand man who's at first going around stores and he's wearing dresses and he's drinking, and then he starts to gradually become depressed because he's the only person left on the earth. Then he meets a young, cute woman, and he's like, oh, he gets a little bit more happy about being the last man and woman on earth. And then they meet a Maori male who has also survived. So then it's quite contentious, and there's a bit of animosity and a bit of a struggle in terms of power. But then they do reach this kind of harmonious state where maybe the three can live together and not necessarily rebuild the world and repopulate the world, but kind of start over again. But then that briefly lasts, and then everything falls apart. And then there's this double ending, which I won't give away. But Quiet Earth is one that I think is maybe looked over because it's again from the mid '80s and nobody famous in it, but it's definitely worth checking out. It was very cool. Now, what are the ones to absolutely avoid on the last night of the Earth?
Well, any disaster movie that has come out, a blockbuster disaster movie in the year since 2000, so you can also exclude
like a Jerry Bruckheimer.
2012 and but the day, not Tomorrow Never Dies, but sort of like whatever, like the day after tomorrow and things like that.
Yeah.
But one movie that I really want to point out that if that is your last day, the whole world is going to get, do not waste your time with Armageddon. I think that is one of the worst films ever. Oh yeah, no,
I didn't waste my time with it.
No, it was just horrible. I had to see it because of Astronomy Connection, and I saw Deep Impact, which I thought was pretty bad until I saw Armageddon. I was like, oh my God, Deep Impact was like Citizen Kane of movies, of disaster films. But Armageddon, no, really, Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, terrible music, terrible. Actually, it had Aerosmith, but no, but it was absolutely horrible. Avoid it,
well,
please.
There you have
it.
If it was December 21st, somebody thinks the Mayans are going to invade, or what is it?
No, the world is just going to end because their calendar actually ran out of
my
digits,
calendar
so it's going to go zero.
And then I just go buy a new one. So
well,
I don't get it.
If your calendar was discovered after after a few centuries, people will be like, oh, there must be something special. No,
it must be valid then, boy. Yeah.
Treat every day as if it is the end of the world. Oh, hey, that was your wise thinking on that.
I don't know if that's such good advice.
Okay, well, that's it for us.
Hopefully not.